everyone to the class of 2023 seniors presentations, their thesis. So as I understand it, I think over the years they have presented them during the day, which has some pros to it that some of the other students tend to be able to come to those a little bit easier. But I really wanted to have it in the evenings so that more dads could come and grandparents and other adults who are working during the day. So we're super excited for these presentations. You should know, I think the parents know, but just so everyone else knows, these senior thesis projects are usually a product of about 2 years. So it's a big project for a long time, a lot of writing, a lot of editing, and sometimes even certain projects that they do with their topic in mind. And the whole capstone project ends with this, with them having to get in front of you and having to share what they've learned and make a case, make an argument, and all from their hard work of writing. And they have some presentations to go along with them tonight as well. But really, this isn't just a capstone of the project, right, of the past couple of years, right, students? This is a capstone type of symbol of their whole education up to this point. So we're a classical school, of course, which means that the third stage in classical school is rhetoric, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So it's such an important, classical education is something that builds on itself the whole way through. That's by design. It's integrated, it builds on itself until the very end. So this is just a symbol of that very end project of being able to have an education that makes a person clear-headed. Pure-hearted, clear-headed. That's the goal. Pure-hearted, clear-headed. That loves God, loves this world that he's made, and makes a case for that. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion. And so it's a beautiful thing. It makes me emotional. It's a flowering of what all these students have done in their education. You're going to be in for a treat. Thanks so much for coming. These are some wonderful topics that these students have chosen. This is their choice. They have chosen these topics. So I'm so proud of you all and what you've accomplished, and you have something to say. I've heard them all, and they have something to say tonight. So I'm super excited. So the first one up to bat is the one and only Grace Paul, and then we have the one and only Cooper and the one and only going tonight. And so that's how it's going to go in order, is Grace and then Cooper and Faith. And Grace's topic, I'll just share it briefly, and she'll introduce it formally herself. But taking on the big topic of social media and how technology has shaped, in general, she gets into how technology has shaped a lot of our society. And how should we think about social media and its impact upon us? So that's the topic. You might have heard her 3-minute sell of the thesis that she's doing and the other seniors did on Grandparents' Day. But if you didn't, then you're just going to get it straight. So we're not going to watch Jumanji. I'm sorry. So people get a little excited, right? They're going to read. So just so you're oriented a little bit. They're going to actually read their entire thesis, okay? So adjust yourself, what you're expecting tonight. It takes, roughly 20 to 25 minutes for them to get through their thesis. I wanted you to get the whole argument, the whole string of that. Feel free to take notes, and we love to have some of your interactions, some of your questions that you might have, or just positive feedback, and encouragement is always wonderful. If you have any questions, please, by all means, ask those questions. And then we'll probably have like a brief, 5-minute break after that Q&A from each student. And then we have some wonderful refreshments out here that we can enjoy a little bit. But I will have to rope people in pretty quickly because we do have 3 tonight. So it will take a little bit of time. And then tomorrow night we have Mr. Shiloh, who will be presenting, and then Elijah. So we'll have 2 presentations tomorrow night, 5 seniors. So, any questions? Good. All right, we should get started. I will pray for us, and then Ms. Grace, you can share with us. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this school. We're so thankful for what you have accomplished here. And we are thankful to be your people, called by your name, called to be in this world, but yet not of it. And you are our creator. Our lives belong to you. You are good, and the evidence and the proof of your existence and your power, your love, your supremacy over all things is undeniable. You have proven yourself to us. And we are thankful that though our hearts can be restless in so many things in this world, we can wander forever until the source of our existence and our meaning is found in you. And so, as Augustine said, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. Thank you, Lord, for your love for us and showing us the purpose of life in the gospel. Thank you, Jesus, that you have revealed yourself and your truth to these students. I think the fruit of their love and their lives is evident, that you have touched them, that you have awakened them, that you have bought them by your blood, that you have showed them the truth. Thank you that they have yielded to this truth. And I pray that we would recognize your fingerprint in their hard work, and that we would glorify you for what is made plain and evident in their lives. Bless Grace as she shares, and Cooper, and Faith, and thank you for the very important word that they had to share tonight, and help us to listen carefully to that word. In Jesus' good name we pray. Amen. All right, let's welcome Grace.
And here we are. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so excited to see you guys and excited to share what I have to say. And my topic is social media and American society's downfall. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. Since the beginning of time, human hearts have been restless when not walking with their Lord and Savior. After the fall, mankind has been searching for something to fill the void in our hearts that only God can. Until people find rest in God, one will never truly be fulfilled. One may seek fulfillment in competitive sports, relationship, money, and success, but any joy found is short-lived. Recently, a new way to gain fulfillment has been emerging in American society, and that is social media. Social media has exploded in growth in America over the past 25 years. This leaves one to question, what is it about social media that has become so wildly popular? In many ways, social media has revolutionized people's ability to remain connected through multiple avenues. Social media allows users to share images, videos, written word, likes and dislikes, and personal information and history. It offers a venue for friends and family to stay connected through story and image, as well as with others across the world that would have otherwise been impossible. Through this platform, the user can create an image of themselves that they would want to be seen by others. Humanity is innately social. We long for relationships, community, and acceptance. Social media allows users to do many of these things, but through the lens that one would choose to present to the world around them. This ability to share only the information and images of the user's liking allows one to shape and fashion how they present themselves to the community around them that is watching. In all relationships, feedback and reciprocation is essential. Social media strips down feedback to its barest form by soliciting likes and dislikes and followers with limited to no elaboration or meaningful connection. Users can often become driven by their number of followers, the amounts of likes on posts or comments. In simple terms, relationships rooted in social media are shallow at best, and likely not real relationships at all. Social media has only been in existence for approximately 25 years, and we are just learning We were just beginning to learn its effects. But how is this impacting culture and life in America? Social media has a negative impact on American society. We can observe this negative impact by looking at the history and its impact on mental health issues and criminal activity. In order to fully understand the impact of social media has on American society, one has to know how it came about. Social media is defined as forms of electronic communication, such as websites for social networking and microblogging, in which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content such as videos. Early electronic communication started off with Morse code. Samuel Morse lived in Massachusetts with his wife, Susan. Samuel worked as a painter and often was out traveling for art commissions. During a trip away from home, Samuel got a written letter that told him Susan was very ill. Samuel rushed to be with his wife, but he was unfortunately too late. Susan was already dead and buried before he could make it home. The death of Samuel's wife was the catalyst that led to his invention of Morse code and the telegraph. Samuel knew that the only way to get information was by letter, which often took weeks or even months for the recipient to receive. Samuel knew American society needed a faster, more efficient way to send information back and forth. In the 1830s, Samuel Morse invented the telegraph, which was sent electronic frequencies back and forth to other locations through copper wire. It wasn't until May 24, 1844, that Morse code was invented. Through the telegraph, Samuel Morse invented a series of electrical dots and dashes tapped out by hand on the telegraph machine that represented the English alphabet. Sorry, guys. Mr. Morse's invention changed the means of communication forever. The first message he sent was, "What hath God wrought?" Samuel Morse seemed to understand the future implications and change his machine was going to bring about to the world around him. Morse code was used for communication during World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, and for shipping companies. The next major electronic communication invention was ARPANET. ARPANET stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, created by the U.S. Department of Defense in 1969. This was the first real email. ARPANET was used for communication between computers. One would simply type out a message and the computer would receive it, no matter how far away. It was used mostly by scientists from a series of universities to share software, hardware, and other data amongst themselves. Another major milestone in communication was 6 degrees. 6 degrees was created by Andrew Weinrich and lasted from 1997 to the year 2000. The users could communicate back and forth with people they were connected to on the platform. It was based off of the web of context model of social networking. 6 degrees was named after the 6 degrees of separation concept, which is the idea that everyone on the planet is connected through 6 steps of relational separation. Even though 6 degrees was groundbreaking, the website had to shut down because there were not enough users. At its peak, 6 degrees had around 100 employees and 3,500,000 registered members. Many other social sites began to emerge just prior to the collapse of 6 degrees. Websites and blogs began to gain popularity in 1999. One social site known as Friendster in 2001 became popular as well, which later developed into a social gaming platform. In 2002, LinkedIn emerged as a professional platform for employees and employers to post jobs and network with one another. And finally, in 2003, MySpace broke ground, which became the first global social media network. Many other social media networks emerged by 2003, but how did we get where we are today? The creation of Facebook helped advance modern social platforms to what it is now. Facebook all started with a group of friends, college friends at Harvard. Mark Zuckerberg, along with his friends, started by developing an app that would rate the female students at Harvard. In 2003, Mark created a software called Face Maps. By hacking the Harvard security network and copying student ID images, Mark was able to seize the information he needed for his app. On the app, the user would see two ID photos next to one another, and then pick who was hot and who was just not. On October 28, 2003, FaceMash launched but was shut down just 2 days later by Harvard executives. Mark faced very serious charges for his actions, but eventually all his charges were dropped, and he remained a Harvard student. This setback did not stop the friends from creating another social platform, and on February 4th, 2004, Facebook launched. Mark called this platform the Facebook, naming it after photo directories shared among students to help them to get to know one another. At first, the membership of Mark's new app, the Facebook, was only for Harvard students. Soon, Zuckerberg's team expanded to other universities and colleges. Finally, in September of 2006, Facebook announced that anyone 13 years or older who had a valid email address could join. By 2009, Facebook became the world's most used networking service as a result. Mark Zuckerberg's creation of Facebook eventually led him to become the world's youngest multi-billionaire. The creation of Facebook was just the beginning of a new era of communication. Following Facebook's creation, social platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube emerged. Unfortunately, these creations have brought little good. Since the creation of social media as we know it today, in the early 2000s, there has been an explosion of people using their platforms. What started as a simple way to connect college students at Harvard has now grown to include a majority of the American population. According to some sources, approximately 77% of Americans have some form of social media accounts. This growth has led to a radical transformation in conventional communication, entertainment, and networking. In my short lifespan, I have observed a drastic deterioration of America's mental health. There appears to be an explosion of homelessness, drug addiction, depression, bipolar, and schizophrenic disorders, among with other societal mental health deterioration indicators. According to the National Library of Medicine, social media is responsible for aggravating mental health problems. This study was conducted to determine the correlation between mental health and social media. Social media dictates and controls most everything in our culture, from what we should eat to beauty standards, by feeding the user counterfeit standards. It tells one what their life should be like today, how one should look, and what friends one should have. Many people develop depression from continuous use of social media. Unrestrained social media use can leave feelings of deep depression and inferiority, which can easily lead to depression. After constantly being fed what one's life should look like, one may begin to notice that their life is nothing like these standards presented on the screen. On these websites, users are confronted with photoshopped models and influencers that portray unrealistic beauty and perfection. There you go. According to a study done by the Girl Scouts of America, they discovered that 88% of over 1,000 adolescent girls surveyed believe that social media puts a lot of pressure on them to look a certain way. This pressure to look and act perfect causes many people to spiral into depression because of their own imperfections. They feel that they are not enough and that they cannot attain to the common standard, when in reality, no one ever will. Author and podcast host Allie Beth Stuckey has written about her own experience with unattainable beauty standards. During her struggle, she was bombarded on social media with the slogan, "You are enough." In reality, that slogan was nothing but lip service. The truth is that you will never be skinny enough, well put together enough, strong enough, etc., to meet the standards of social media. From 2017 to 2018, the number of plastic surgeries increased by nearly 250,000 operations. This alone shows how many individuals are willing to permanently change their bodily features in order to live up to the standard. Sadly, Many people do not see through the Photoshop and quirky angles and fall into a depression believing that they will never be enough. Because of social media, depression has increased. In 2019, a study was conducted by a group of doctors to find the connection between social media, depression, and anxiety. According to the study, social platforms have been the cause of tremendous increase in mental health disorders. Suicides have gone up since the creation of social media, especially in teens. CBS News states that the rate of young adults with suicidal thoughts, plans, attempts, and deaths by suicide has increased from 7% to 10.3% in 2017. Cyberbullying has also significantly impacted suicide rates as well. A study led by the CDC found that cyberbullying is a significant contributing factor in suicides. Many people see social platforms as opportunities to put others down in order to make themselves feel better. It is all too easy to write something behind the screen that we would have not had the courage to say face to face. Something as simple as an unkind word relayed on social media can be a significant factor in one choosing to take their own life. For example, a young boy in Silicon Valley was tragically blackmailed by the threat of what is called sexhortation. This is a form of sexual exhortation, the exhortation of a person through the use of the history of their sexual conduct. He felt the only way to get out of the potential shame was to end his own life. Some believe that suicide is the only answer, but that is never true. God is always the answer to our distress. But due to the use of social media, anxiety has risen as well. Anxiety is the feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. Anxiety and worry have risen to flood proportions in a large part of the consumption of social media. A study was conducted among doctors investigating the correlation between anxiety and the use of social platforms. The study indicates that increases in time spent on social media, television, and computers are associated with increases in anxiety. This excess time spent on social media has not only increased rates of anxiety, but it has also made American society forget how to socially interact with others. We have been created to feel relationally fulfilled in the presence of others. However, with social media, we only experience an empty shell of the community and personal community we need to grow and to flourish. To deprive ourselves of this innate need will cause many problems now and in the future. For example, we often stutter when engaging with others in conversation, are not able to look them in the eye, or do not know when it is appropriate to give our opinion and when to refrain. These undeveloped communication skills often leave a person feeling vulnerable and inadequate in real-life interaction. Face-to-face communication exposes one's lack of social maturity, and the only way to overcome it is to practice it. To practice and develop these skills requires more person-to-person interaction and less social media. Even though users are losing their ability to competently interact with others face-to-face, they are also experiencing FOMO, another form of anxiety. FOMO stands for the fear of missing out. Social media continuously feeds consumers with information on what others are doing at all times. This constant information can cause the viewer to be nervous that they are missing out on something. They can also feel left out, worried that they will not get invited to that one party or to that one event, causing them to not be confident in who they are and dwelling on the thought that they are not liked. According to Dr. Oakenberg, people who showed more FOMO also showed a more problematic social media use. This is evident by the time spent on social media. Partaking in online networking has unfortunately caused a spike in addiction in American society as well. Social platforms are designed to grab one's attention and to keep it. Specific algorithms have been created to feed consumers exactly what they want, based on likes, clicks, and even time spent on one frame or series of images. Social media companies have enlisted the help of casino designers to capture and keep the attention and time of the users who log on to their platforms. Their intention is to prolong their stay on the app, or whatever it is they're viewing. Social media is like a predator waiting to entangle its prey. The designers of Facebook, Instagram, etc. are all looking to try to sell products to their users. Users are not the customers of social platforms. Big advertisers and companies are their customers. These companies spend millions of dollars to have their advertisements on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. That is where social platforms make their money. Because the users of the apps are operating it for free, social media companies need to find a way to keep them on the app in order to sell products to them. They design features on their app that play with brain chemistry. When looking at social media, the brain releases the chemical dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical that gives you feelings of happiness and pleasure. For example, think of the feeling of winning a game when you were younger. It was pretty awesome, right? Now, instead of only getting that feeling every once in a while, when on social media, we might increase this feeling. This causes the user to crave it like a drug, resulting in addiction. They use the same tactics as the slot machine designers in casinos, which are said to be one of the most addictive machines ever invented. I have personal experience with the addictive nature of Instagram. As soon as you log on to the Reel section, it is really hard not to keep scrolling. Social platforms also track what we as the viewers are viewing. So if the user views a certain YouTube channel, they will put another that is similar on their feed. Not only that, they specifically curate ads depending on what you view. It is absolutely astonishing what length these companies go to in order to sell their products to the user. They do not care about their health. All they care about is their attention, even if that means addiction. Criminal activity has been another reason that social platforms have hindered our society. How has this made a change in American society? What has it done to increase our crime? One crime that is increased is theft. Much of one's personal information is shared when something is posted. One can unknowingly make themselves a target for theft. This is all done when social media users post a picture in front of their house, write down what town they live in, or innocently share that it is their birthday. Thieves can pick and choose their targets based on what they post. For example, if someone posts that they are on vacation, this may open up an opportunity for home or business burglary. Not only can item theft become a problem on social media, but so can identity theft. Many social platforms naturally encourage their users to give as much personal information as possible. Thieves can make fake accounts and steal photos off of the victim's real account. Not only that, but they will often do something called phishing. Phishing is when someone may message the user on social media and ask for personal information. The victims will often assume that they know who sent the message and freely share that information. Social media has caused theft of all kinds to increase. Stalking is a serious crime that social media has affected on our current American society. Stalking is to harass or persecute someone with unwanted and obsessive attention. Social media makes it so easy to see others' information that one can often not help but be nosy. On social media, we can post what we are doing, where we are, and sometimes even what we are eating. What's more, we even post our personal feelings without any filter for those who may view it. This can give many evil people a lead to how they may find you, where you live, and your hobbies. This also allows people to look through your old posts and new posts without you knowing it. What is scary is that social platforms make it really difficult to know if somebody is stalking you. Some signs of stalking can be the perpetrator liking an old post, following your friends so that they can stay connected with you, creating fake accounts once they have been blocked, and many other tactics. 40 years ago, stalking was very hard to pull off because suspects did not have much free information at hand. Now, with the information we freely give to all, stalking has become more and more common. However, the most significant increase in crime due to social media is the increase in pedophilia. Young children are getting phones and social media accounts as early as 8 or 10 years old. These children are perfect targets for pedophiles. Children that have their own social media accounts can unknowingly post pictures that can make them an easy target. Many parents do not regulate their children's accounts or what they post. This can leave many opportunities for pedophiles to swoop in and manipulate a child. For example, a pedophile might directly message a young child pretending to be their age or posing as a friend of their parents. Next, they might get the child to give information about themselves so that they can learn how to manipulate them. Parents posting images of their children is another good way for pedophiles to collect photographs of information. Many parents may unknowingly post an innocent picture of their child playing in the bathtub or in their bathing suit at the beach. Images such as these are exactly what pedophiles spend days scouring the internet for. To a pedophile, these are the images that drive them to keep searching. It is extremely sad that we as a country and culture have to even worry and think about evils such as these. However, we live in a fallen world, making this a reality to many people and children in America. Social platforms have made evils such as these a more prevalent reality. Social media is widely used by all generations in American society, and it is shaping their way of life. The effect of social media has brought little good. Social media has divided our attention from what is good and godly. It has divided our nation and polarized our belief systems. Social media has increased crime, sexual immorality, and caused endless pain and suffering for millions of its users. It has caused millions of people to question their worth and created or exasperated their mental health issues. Many wonder if social media will bring fulfillment to their life, and if not, what will? Only Jesus Christ can bring true fulfillment to our lives. We may do this by fully surrendering our lives to Him. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I caught a cold like the day before. That was really fun. Anyways, but there's so much to touch on this topic, and I mean, frankly, that was long, and so to fit in a bunch of other stuff was pretty crazy. So if you guys are interested in looking up much more information, here's some really good podcasts and books and films that you can watch to do some further research and hear from others for yourself. Anyways, well, thank you guys so much, and sounds like questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Grace.
Yeah.
Definitely want to have people have an opportunity to ask some questions, and so a wonderful case that you have made here, and I'm filled with questions and all kinds of feedback. But I will, as you know, always. But I will give the floor to everybody else.
Awesome.
So just feel free to raise your hand. Yeah.
Looks like we have an in. Hi, Mr. Schwager.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
I was wondering, with all that you had researched and all this, how has it affected your use of social media?
Well, that's a good question. I actually don't have an account,
Wow.
but I can kind of vicariously live through my mom's account. So it has affected me a lot. I can notice that if I'm on social media for a prolonged period of time, I can notice myself caring a lot more what others think, and noticing like, oh man, look at all of them. They're doing a lot of fun things and I'm not. And it can often lead, to me feeling kind of sad and feel like my life is a little bit inferior to others. So that's one way that it's affected my life. Yeah. Any more questions? Mrs. Alexander?
Is there a way that Christians can use social media for good?
Yes. So, a lot of people will say, well, should we just be Amish and not use social media at all? Which my answer to that is no. There are a lot of really redeemable qualities about social media. You're able to communicate with others, and it's a way for family and friends to feel like they're a part of your life, even though they can be far away. And as we just learned, social media is a very different place. But as Christians, we must be very careful that we don't have the mentality of being influenced, but we are influencing. We are the influencers in that situation. And as Christians, we must seek to redeem social media, not abandon it, and to amplify the voices of truth and wisdom while we're on it. It can be such a great way to share the gospel with people and to just share joyful things in your life. You can look at it as to use social media to turn what you love into something that blesses other people and not what you hate into something that angers others. So, yeah. Any other questions? Mrs. Martin?
So, how do you think social media is different from, like, we've had TV around for 100 years and Hollywood and stuff. It's always been like unattainable standards. Like when I was in high school, all the girls would read 17 magazine and so what makes social media different?
So, yeah, social media they are similar in the ways that they have unattainable standards, but social media users are able to like things and to add comments. When in movies, you don't have people constantly being like, ooh, I like this scene, or ooh, I don't like this scene. So it makes a big difference when you actually have feedback from others saying they like this more than that, and it can lead. And it's also your own information. So it's a lot more personal than just watching TV or television or reading magazines.
Yeah, so do you think you'd say then that, like, the issue, because my question was something like both Brittany's and Jana's. You say, well, this is like a technology, so it's not inherently immoral, could be good, could be bad. Like, what you just said there is like, yeah, there's something unique about social media in that it's designed to be like a fake replacement for actual human relationship, right? And that, so I guess do you think that's true? Do you agree with that? And if that's true, yeah, is it redeemable? Like, how would it be redeemable? I'm just trying to think this.
Yeah.
Do you think all social media is inherently like will always lead to this place, or could we imagine a parallel world where social media in its current form more or less exists, but is not?
Okay, I think I get your question. So are you
That's
saying
my
that
question.
can it be good? Well, yeah. So I think it definitely can be good. Yeah. Oh, hopefully I answered your question right. But yeah, I think it can be good in the way that it seems fake to some degree. I think that it would be a form of fake relationships when you are following and meeting people online that you have never met face to face. That is the point where it can become fake relationships because you've never met them face to face. Whereas social media, if you know the person and they are part of your life, they're family members, it can be great for them to see what you're doing in your life and to feel a part of it. So I think in that way, it can definitely be good in the way that the relationships cannot be fake. If that's okay.
It's an honest question. I wasn't gotcha.
Great. Yes, Ms. Vitrin?
Have you thought about, or do you have any suggestions on how to encourage teens that have social media and want to maintain a Christian worldview? So, you have your social media, but how can teachers and parents and friends encourage each other, I guess, on social media with how to maintain that Christian worldview so that we have the mindset where we start to think, oh, I wish I was doing all of that surfing today, or whatever it was, or what, you know what I mean? We're seeing other things. Do you have like an idea or suggestion about how to maintain that?
Yeah, so being encouraging is super important. And just encourage people to share something that maybe blessed them that day or in how they found joy in it. And just to remind others that they are trying to bless you when if you're using social media in the correct way, they're trying to bless you in what they share. It could be a great quote from Charles Spurgeon or C.S. Lewis. And so it's just to encourage people to know that to not find your worth in social media, but to find it in Christ. And to know that this is just a way of sharing information with each other and not their real worth. Remind them what their real worth, where it lies. Yeah, and that would be just a great way to encourage people. Yeah. Any more questions?
Why did you choose this topic? Why is it important to you?
Well, sorry. I think it's really important. It is so prevalent in our society. It is very widely used, and they say actually the average person spends 2.5 hours or more on social media per day, which is a lot. That's a lot of time. If you break that down, that ends up being quite a bit of days in your life if you say you use it like for 25 years. So it's really important to me to find out what it does to society and how that could possibly affect us. So it was, really interesting, and I just was curious to see what does that do to society, and are its effects good or bad, and how do we go about navigating it? Yes, Mr. Rena?
Are there like inherent physiological effects of it on people that you can't possibly avoid if you use it for a prolonged period of time? Did you get into that at all?
So actually, I have a podcast. Oh shoot, which one is it? The Science Behind the Dangers of Screen Time with Allie Stuckey, relatable episode number 803. Well, I didn't have time to include it into all that I had, but they say that there's a part of your brain that they studied in the 2000s, just children watching TV. It ended up shrinking, and so their attention spans became a lot smaller. And I don't know, you can notice this about a lot of children. Their attention spans have gotten to be super short. So I would say that's a way that it's affected. Any screen has affected us physically. Yes, Mr. Tyler?
Would you say that reading books could make your brain grow larger?
I don't know. That is something I haven't researched, but I think that would be. Reading books is so important. Yeah. And reading ones that have been around for a while and have been tested and proven to have lots of wisdom in them is really important. Partly why we're at a classical school. To learn the classics and why they're important and getting wisdom from them. So I don't know if it expands. That would be really funny. Expands your imagination. I'm not sure. Anyways, yes, Mrs. Martin.
I was just wondering, because the study you said talked about like raising high anxiety rates with like screen time just in general, and like you said, shrinking your brain. But I'm wondering, did you read anything about just lack of physical activity? Like besides the social aspect, if you're staring at screens all the time, you're doing less physical activity, work, sweating, that kind of stuff. Did you read anything about relationship there?
I did not, but I could probably notice just by observation that with less work, because we were created to work and to work the land and be in communion with God. But yeah, you can notice if you are sitting in your house not doing anything, you're left alone with your thoughts for sometimes too long, and working, and you know that working out sometimes can release toxins in your body and can give you dopamine, I'm pretty sure, and make you happy. So I haven't done enough research on that end and the ties between those two topics, but that would be something that I definitely should look into.
I know, just being athletic director, post-COVID, sports participation is down like 20 to 30%.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is a lot. Yeah, that's crazy.
they do say that it's the safest, the children have never been physically safer, but actually declining in their emotional and mental stability. And so kids are home more and in less physical danger as far as being adventurous, but actually like wasting away in other ways
Yes,
because they're so homebound and screen bound.
totally.
So.
Yeah, super important.
Good job. Well done, Grace.
Thank you so much, guys.
Many more things to think about and discuss from that topic. And would you be willing to continue to have this conversation with people in the future about if they ask you more questions?
Totally. Yeah.
She'll take you
Come
on.
up to me anytime.
Just DM her.
Yep. DM my mom. There we go. Well, thank you guys.
Very good. Let's take 5 minutes, and it's 7:20. Let's take 5 minutes, and then we'll have Mr. Cooper come up. 5 minutes. Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
I just took my last I can't believe these guys are down there. So you did, yeah. You were talking about that word semester. And yeah, we have robots. But everyone. It all settled down. I'm on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going in as a freshman, so I kind of flying class. Exciting. So you want to go out? So I'm going in as a freshman. But I'll
Colleges like entering the rest of your life.
Good job, Grace. Oh, really?
That's not. Let somebody love you.
Just every once in a while we get to see what you're doing.
Oh, I know. I don't play very many, but yeah. I didn't realize quite how good. They'll surpass you and all kinds of yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, he's intense. Yeah.
Okay, Ben, you should give him 1 minute warning.
Yeah, yes, oh yeah. Right. You got ready? Stay here and hold forward.
Since then you used all pictures in the program.
Grace is so
Yeah. This
All right, everyone, let's have a seat and we'll get started. Mr. Cooper has been going to St. Abraham since I think 1975. Today was his last day of wearing formal uniform. I think there's an Instagram, speaking of social media, I think there's an Instagram post of Cooper that looks pretty similar to who he is now, except he's about a foot tall. And he's this little plaid tie and white shirt, pretty special. So here you are. And we can't wait to hear what you got to say, so dive in, my friend.
Awesome. Well, my thesis for the last 2 years, the topic I chose was fear. And I've read it. Freedom from fear. Throughout history, men have overcome fears and obstacles to do great things for the world in the area of discovery, exploration, and moral growth. At a certain point in America, pursuing safety became a chief virtue. Parents began raising their sons to take less risks and be more fearful. God has not called us to a life of fear, but a life of boldness and confidence in the calling He has planned for us. We need to recover this courageous spirit in our culture, find strength in our faith, and show a watching world that God has not called us to a safe life, but lives that reflect complete trust in Him. In this paper, I'll go over inspiring characters throughout history. I'll examine factors leading to more fearful society, and finally look to Scripture to see God's prescribed way to live. First, we'll look to the past. Christopher Columbus. An ancient example of bravery was shown by Christopher Columbus, the iconic explorer. Columbus changed the world when he sailed from Spain, the Old World, in hopes of discovering new land and bridging the gap from Europe to Asia. Instead of discovering the route to Asia, he stumbled across the New World, which eventually became America. His journeys marked the beginning of centuries of exploration and colonization of North and South America. He was born in Genoa, Italy in 1451. He was raised on the sea in a merchant ship. He was comfortable sailing from an early age and had dreams of making discoveries, but could not chase them at the time. A day came where pirates attacked his father's boat and sank it. Columbus narrowly survived by hanging on to a piece of driftwood, eventually washing up to the coast of Lisbon. Once he grew up, he spent days studying math, astronomy, and navigation. During his studies, Columbus became determined that the earth was round and that he could find a route across the sea to Asia. Traveling across the land to Asia was almost impossible. The journey was too long and it was too dangerous. The alternative was sailing around the Cape of Good Hope, the lowest point of Africa, which was famous for its treacherous navigation conditions. Columbus was willing to die in an attempt to find a safer route across the Atlantic. However, he had no ship of his own or a crew that could embark with him on his mission. Despite the setbacks, he was steadfast in his intentions to succeed. He faced trouble finding a sponsor, but eventually made a contract with Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, promising that he could keep 10% of whatever riches he found, along with a noble title and the governorship of any lands he should encounter. And so, as Columbus said, following the light of the sun, we left the old world. Columbus and his crew sailed on his ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. On October 12th, land was discovered. Instead of the East Indies, they had found several Caribbean islands. Columbus established a makeshift colony on an island and then returned to Spain. He revisited these islands 6 months later in 1493 and again in 1498. Although he did not succeed in discovering gold or the riches that he promised the Spanish crown, his courage inspired many explorers to follow him and explore the New World. Columbus is celebrated for his pioneering exploits and his example of bravery and risk-taking. He encourages others by saying, prevailing over all obstacles and distractions, one may unfailingly arrive at his chosen goal or destination. The world requires bold souls like Christopher Columbus with smart minds and a will to ascend to greater heights. Next on the list of American, heroes, Jackie Robinson. An American hero that stood up for civil rights and freedom. He was a professional athlete, civil rights activist, and Medal of Freedom recipient. He had a profound influence on America by breaking the color barrier in baseball. He fearlessly challenged the deeply rooted custom of racial segregation in both the North and the South. For a man with such a large impact on the nation, Jackie had humble beginnings. He was born in 1919 and raised in Georgia by a single mom, Mallie Robinson. They lived in an all-white neighborhood, so Jackie was accustomed to prejudice from his neighbors. This was an era where Black people faced segregation and relentless racial oppression. Legislators segregated everything from schools, public parks, theaters, pools, cemeteries, asylums, jails, and residential homes. For Jackie's family, the oppression only brought them closer together. He attended UCLA, but was forced to leave due to financial difficulties. Eventually, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and stayed for 2 years. Jackie left with a dishonorable discharge related to his disagreements with racial discrimination. In 1945, he played baseball in the Negro Baseball League. He was an outstanding athlete, and like any other young player, he dreamed of playing in the big leagues. 2 years later, Branch Rickey, president of the Brooklyn Dodgers, approached Jackie with hopeful news. He offered to bring Jackie to the Dodgers, but could not promise it would be a smooth journey. The Major League of Baseball had been segregated since 1889. Many white players would have trouble accepting Jackie into the league because of his skin color. However, he believed he could take anything that was thrown his way. All of Rickey's warnings came true, and more. Players called him names and even threatened to hurt him. But Jackie knew he must not retaliate. Instead, he earned respect through his talent with the baseball bat. He understood that being received in a white privileged world was nearly impossible. He once said, "I cannot sing the anthem. I cannot salute the flag, for I know I'm a Black man in a white world." No matter how far Jackie was from being accepted, he was determined to see every American receive first-class citizenship. He strove to prove that his race could compete equally in any sport and that he should be respected. He gradually gained respect in the professional league after his skill was recognized. Jackie completed his rookie season on the Dodgers as National League Rookie of the Year and the NL's Most Valuable Player. In 1962, he made the Baseball Hall of Fame, changing the future of the sport entirely. To this day, he is honored as an American hero who bravely defied those who worked against racial equality. He did not aspire for self-absorbed glory, but he battled for the greater good of America and the hope of a better future. America needs people like Jackie to be unafraid of what society thinks of them. Last, an example of a brave soul that changed the course of history is Neil Armstrong. He was an American astronaut, aeronautical engineer, and the first person to walk on the moon. He bravely faced the risks of space travel, obeying his call of duty fearlessly against seemingly impossible odds. Armstrong was married and he understood the risk of death, but he made the moon landing his life's mission to bring pride to America. A mission this substantial came with many dangers. Solar radiation sears the moon's surface. Its gravity is lumpy, making landing difficult, and there is no atmosphere to protect the astronauts from the elements. There is no confirmation that the astronauts would survive. So what gave Neil Armstrong the courage? He states it perfectly when he says, "I think we're going to the moon because it's in the nature of the human being to face challenges. It's by the nature of his deep inner soul. We're required to do these things just as a salmon swims upstream." As human beings, we possess an innate desire to face challenges, overcome obstacles, and change history. This supernatural drive is instilled in us by the Creator, who gave us the universe to explore and love. We are not designed to remain static. We are made to face challenges. Armstrong concurs, there are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief. We should live life to the fullest and be innovative in all that we do. Armstrong was accompanied on his lunar mission by two other astronauts, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. Armstrong was elected mission commander because of his array of experience in flight and engineering and his fearless attitude and confidence. He's one of the most commendable men in history, exemplifying through his life that taking courage-driven risks with good intentions can result in great accomplishments. And now we'll look to the present time. What has changed in our society? Well, reflecting on these examples gives us a vision of what can be achieved through fearlessness. Each of these men were raised to face unimaginable circumstances in their pursuit of greatness. There was a dramatic shift, however, of values in post-World War II America, when men seemed to become more fearful. The bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941 and the deadly war with Europe are both factors contributing to this change. Lily Rothman argues that one more change over the last half century has been the proliferation of a politics of fear. Peter Stearns identifies Lyndon Johnson's 1964 Daisy ad as the first fear-based political ad. And he says that fear's presence in American discourse has only increased since then. I'll show it to you guys. This is the first ad considered to use fear as a means of voting.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Basically, vote for President B. Johnson or die. Barry Glassner, author of The Culture of Fear, Why Americans Are Afraid of the Wrong Things, agrees that politicians, companies, and the media have played a big part in the change, figuring out how to trigger fear and using that knowledge more frequently. These cultural changes and historical events led to a dramatic shift in American society for decades to come. Fear is the strongest human emotion and the largest factor that rules one's life. People can be afraid to take big steps in life, such as buying a house or starting a family. Fear can often demotivate someone from reaching their life's goals or ambitions. We focus on mostly an imaginary outcome or worst-case scenario, which makes us second guess our decisions in moving forward. Fear can rip apart relationships and even slowly shatter a society. People will do almost anything if enough fear is instilled in their culture. A recent example which proves this true was the fear of COVID-19. Now, COVID was real, and people were affected by it. Without at least some of the precautions we took, more people could have been hurt. But although this virus's mortality rate among children is considerably lower than the common flu's mortality rate, people still reacted in pretty groundless ways. This is due to the media and the government inducting the nation with irrational fears. We place too much trust in what is considered safe in our culture. We ignore common sense once instilled with the controlling sense of uncertainty for our future. The rules enforced for our safety during COVID-19, most of them were more harmful than the virus itself. Millions of healthy Americans stayed indoors for over a year, and the vast majority of people wore masks outside while walking or sitting. Many parents would not even allow their children to play with friends for a whole year. You see, fear without reason is far more dangerous to society than rational fear. If one is being mugged, it's rational to feel fear. It's an instinct to protect yourself or someone else. If you lose your child in a crowded venue, you're going to experience fear. And this is healthy, but irrational fear is paralyzing. How does this differ from the past? And when did fear in our culture become so closely entwined? The language we use today has become more inclined to welcome fear. New expressions like age of anxiety or culture of fear have been proliferated to the point that they are used regularly. Idioms such as these emerged into newspaper printing during the 1990s. It was during the 1990s that the term culture of fear gradually acquired the status of a distinct standalone idiom. This expanded from 8 references in 1996 to 2,222 references in 2016. This term can refer to feelings of uncertainty, pressure, or being threatened by crime and terrorism. As we become more accustomed to protecting ourselves due to the overwhelming scare stories in the news, we treat safety as a virtue. For a recent example, people earn respect from others by wearing a face mask. Taking unnecessary precautions proves to be admired in a culture full of irrational fears. Safety has become our fundamental value. Drinking water from a tap or eating a large cheeseburger are now targets of health alerts. In fact, virtually anything that you eat has been associated with cancer. A study of 50 common ingredients randomly taken from a cookbook found that 40 of them were subject of articles reporting their cancer risk. Things that were once considered safe and normal are being portrayed as harmful. The pervasiveness of fear and idolization of safety has also dramatically affected how children are raised in modern America. Parents have become so worried with their kids' affairs that they become helicopter parents. This descriptive term refers to parents that hover over and then rescue their children whenever trouble arises. Helicopter parenting has a few advantages, but mostly results in negative consequences for kids. One example could be a parent that never lets their child climb the jungle gym ladder for fear of an injury. When parents are overprotective, they risk cutting off their children from life experiences that help them grow and mature. This type of parenting will not build a generation of men such as Columbus, Armstrong, or Jackie Robinson. Along with all these cultural changes and historical events, the most powerful deterrent of true courage was the steep decline of the Christian religion and the rise of secularism in America. This graph demonstrates. And this is the percentage of people that would call themselves Christians at the time. The decline of faith led to a rise in fear, which has affected all generations since. Without putting trust in God, trust was placed in the ability to control circumstances and protect children through pursuing safety. I believe the spike we see in cultural fear can be linked to the decline of the Christian faith. The frequent calls to avoid risks can also be interpreted as a reflection of a loss of faith in people. The way people fear weighs primarily on their religious beliefs. Without a God to rely on, humans are prone to unconsciously assimilate external values, sometimes even those that they publicly criticize. In Mark 5:36, Jesus says, "Do not be afraid, only believe." He refers to fear and faith as opposites. When faith is present, fear is driven away, and faith ceases when fear is present. The solution to these fears will not be found in politics, technology, or any man-made endeavor. Only a return to the faith in God will ultimately help our society overcome the fears that daily plague us. Now, what does the Bible have to say about all this? Well, sadly, we're currently a skittish generation with a plethora of fears, from global warming, global pandemics, terrorism, and the trivial fears of so many individuals. So how can we remove the muzzle of fear from our secular society? The Bible has much to say about our fears, and unlike our culture, it discourages them. Matthew 6:3 says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Instead of worrying, whenever I'm afraid, I'll trust in you." Everyone should use these verses as a tactic of defeating worry and anxiety and replacing fear with trust in God. Courage is not found from within ourselves. It is found from being close to God and trusting that He will preserve you. For we are promised that the Lord will protect you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Bible is clear that God's intentions for men exceed petty fears. We were created for bigger things. Men were made to guard and take dominion over the earth God gave us, exemplified in the Garden of Eden. Fear only serves one purpose: to worship and glorify God. The only fear that is not wrong is the fear of God. Unlike our temporal fears in relation to foolishness, God tells us that fear of Him is wisdom. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The only place for fear in human life is the fear of God, which ultimately leads to our happiness and the freedom from all other fears of mankind. Parenting will also be transformed when they no longer resort to an over-involvement in their kids' lives. Instead, they need to trust God's plan for the future. The biblical role of a parent is to be a good steward of the children God has placed into their care. God commands us to raise children in the way of the Lord. And the way of the Lord is to take seriously His command, not to fear. Our reaction to pandemics and war will be transformed when we truly understand that each of our days is in God's hand. Our ability to be manipulated by fear will be transformed when we fear God and God alone. In conclusion, the past 60 years has made safety a predominant value in America. This is due to changes in society, politics, and parenting, and the other fears instilled in our culture through the news and the media. We see how men throughout history have overcome fears and obstacles to do great things for the world, discover new things, and strengthen our moral foundations. Neil Armstrong, who bravely helped make space exploration possible, Christopher Columbus, who impacted the world by discovering the Americas, and Jackie Robinson, who amalgamated black and white sports. These three men showed exceptional courage in God's great plan for their lives. God has not called men to a life of fear, but a life of boldness and confidence in the calling He's planned for us. We need to recover this courageous spirit in our culture. We need to find strength in our faith and show a watching world God has not called us to a safe life, but lives that reflect complete trust in Him. Thank you. And then, question time. And then while you guys are asking questions, I have a few, kind of a little group of photos that I've collected over the last year, where me and my class have done pretty exciting and adventurous things, so I'd like to share them, starting with this. But you guys are feel free to ask questions.
Did you overcome your fear of ticks?
I was going to mention that. Yeah, it was almost made the conclusion, but I've not solved that problem. Right, I know. That's number 2. But probably still have some somewhere. Yes.
So this question has a little bit of a story behind it, but it's a little short story. But I was having this exact discussion with a group of grad students a few years ago, and amazingly, in a group of like 15 grad students, we're all geology majors. Like usually, tend to like the outdoors, like adventure. Me and one other student were the only ones saying that there's something basically human and basically good about doing brave things. Everybody else said we were wrong. These are all like 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, the biggest argument they kept coming back to was like their main point is that seeking adventure, seeking like a Christopher Columbus or a Neil Armstrong or somebody is like you're doing something because you want your name great, and that's essentially self-centered. Right. And what you should do is never want to hurt other people. And so it's more thinking of others to not ever do anything that endangers your own life. How would you argue against that?
Well, behind a lot of like heroes, what we consider heroes throughout history, there's been a lot of like self-glory involved. And I mentioned a little bit, but we can try to achieve great things with good intentions. Like for Jackie, for example, he was trying to, he wanted citizenship for all, like equal citizenship for all Americans. And it's not, fear of getting over it is not always just a lot, like it helps to do things like this, like exploration stuff, but a lot of it is that helps with just like being a missionary in our daily lives and not being afraid of our like proclaiming our faith. Yeah, just you need good intentions. It's wrong to have you want glory for yourself and pursuing things for those reasons. I don't know if that helps at all, but yeah, that's funny about your grad students. And sad.
It made me scared.
I know. You need people to be able to explore and enjoy God's creation. Yes.
What's the biggest fear you consider that you've overcome?
I've had a lot, and I'm still young, but my dad's and my parents have helped me a lot, like just with small things in my life so far. One example is even just this last year, our basketball season, I didn't want to at first, and with a little like encouragement and a push from my mom, I did it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I learned a lot from that experience. Things like that have taught me lessons. In my future, I'll look back on those and realize if I just push through, I'll enjoy this at the end. Another would be, well, surfing, obviously. When I was a kid, I used to hide in Capitol bathrooms. I was afraid of catching a few waves, but my dad would say, oh, we'll get one wave, and you can do this or this. And now look at me, it's all I can kind of do. So it's taught me a lot. And other stories like that, just how parenting can help kids a lot. That's how I want to raise my kids.
So how would you distinguish that type of helicopter parent from other? What's the difference between that and helicopter parenting?
I mentioned a little bit, but helicopter parenting is like having a leash on your kids at all times, not letting them do things like surfing, or if the kid like doesn't want to do basketball, let's say, like the parent won't make them. Sometimes like a push in the right direction is what they need. Right. Mr. Martin has a pretty good quote. I'd rather have kids with a few broken bones than a coward. I'm going to say that one a lot to my kids. Not just doing stupid things, but doing things that are risky, I guess. Oh yeah.
So all those guys you mentioned had like a big goal, right? Explore the new world, go to space, break the color, defeat racism in sports. So what should I do? I'm totally convinced by your thesis. So now, what, should I be Elon Musk? Should I build
You should go to Mars.
Yeah, right. So what are the big goals that the modern West should pursue? It's sort of that fear is holding us back from that we should.
Right. Good question.
Pursue.
Well, exploration is hard because almost everything in our little world has been discovered. But just daily, confidence in faith and always sharing the gospel with people, not being afraid of that. That's a goal in and of itself that every person needs to strive to achieve. And martyrs, for example, I wish I mentioned more of them, but not all of them are remembered, or they don't all have their name in the Hall of Fame or something. But they, in God's eyes, they are the real heroes. So that's just an example of just bravery and faith. That's what we should strive for. And then sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
And then God tells us to enjoy and love this world, so doing things that we might be out of our comfort zone, climbing 14er right here, which eventually led to one of the best views of my life. Just enjoying God's creation is what He wants for us. So it might not be remembered by everyone, but it'll be remembered by us, and that's what matters.
Not everybody might know what a 14er is.
Sorry.
What is a 14er?
14,000 feet. Steep. Thanks, Ryle, for making me do this. Yes.
How can we overcome fear when a good outcome isn't always guaranteed? You showcased some people who had success.
Right.
But I think about John the Baptist, who was, on mission for God, very bold in the faith. Who was Elijah, who was to come, and in his early 30s was beheaded on the whims of one of King Herod's, pagan, hedonistic relatives. Mm-hmm. And so, even he was when he was in prison, sent messages to Jesus, is are you the chosen one? If so, come break me out of here, you know? So how can we have faith and overcome fear when a great risk might end not so great?
Question. When you say that, I think of Psalms 121:7, and that says, the Lord will keep you from all evil. And a lot of people interpret that as, nothing, as long as I trust in God, nothing bad can happen to me. But just because God will protect us from all evil, that doesn't mean we won't face trouble. And Jesus, when he was on the earth, said, trouble shall come, but I have overcome the world. So we will face challenges in life, and like Jesus, even if we have, he went to the cross, so even if we face death, we should still do the right thing. John is a good example of that. Oh yeah, that's when I was good. That's when I got tips. No, there's. I could change it.
How come you were wearing two helmets?
Right.
No. That's fine.
One of the things that I really appreciated, there are many great things you said, Cooper. One of the things that I think is important to remember is your point that you said it in different words, but that allowing ourselves to give into an anxious, worrisome fear, it displaces things. It displaces things. And one of the serious things that it tends to displace is faith. You said it in different words, but that's effectively what you were saying. And I think that's a very important point, is that fear, sinful, there's concept of fear of God, of course, which is the only ultimate reverence, respect, and awe, and a healthy fear that we should have. That it's not benign. Like giving into worry and anxiety, it debilitates, right? It actually displaces and pushes out other things, and faith is the thing that can tend to displace, which is something we should take to heart. So I really appreciate you bringing that out. I feel like you and Grace are a little bit in cahoots with how they. Where's Grace? There's Grace. How some of this kind of works together. Do you think that the rise of global media, TV, that has been going on for a little while, it's accentuated especially with devices that are right in our hands. Do you think that the rise in access to what is going on the other side of the world, which news thrives off of the sensational, right? So you're going to get sensational and tragic things almost constantly. Do you think that a constant feeding of those, a constant display of those things into our lives, do you think there's a link that how that has increased our fear?
Definitely. I think a lot of people just constantly watch the news, and that can lead to feel like, oh no, our world's falling apart. And me personally, I barely know what's going on. I know a little bit, but I don't let it control me. No,
which is why you're so bold.
Yeah, that's definitely a reason.
Well, anything else? Good question.
Well, that
Yes.
got me thinking about, because all of your transition into fear-based society, there's all the images of the atomic bomb. What do you think there might be a relationship between that and the fear-based society?
Oh, the
atomic
nuclear
bomb
war?
was so much a part of.
Oh yes. Well, before I was born, there was a long time where nuclear war is the big threat, and that's what everyone was afraid of thinking of. But that was definitely a big thing. There's different things now, but back then, yeah, when that ad came out, that was the big thing. Everyone was terrified of that. So when they saw that, they got a vote for Women B. More.
Did you get through all your bold pictures? All right. Why did you choose that picture? I look like I'm 300 pounds. I don't think my pockets, right? Oh. All right, you're done. All right, you're done. All right, let's just take just a few minutes, just 3 minutes. Use the restroom, grab some water. We have Faith Bartlett coming up.
Oh,
Wait, this is on YouTube. Hi, brother. Say hi to social media. Social media. Who's watching? I don't know. Calm down. His name is. My name's Bond. James Bond. James Bond, bro. We're gonna be live, guys. You're one of them.
Vince said he can kick you out and deliberate. I don't want to pass you. Yeah, he is a dissertation. Oh my God. You just get a master's Critical. One more presentation. So very excited to hear Miss Faith's story on this, and she has some it's a very personal topic for you in so many ways, and reflects your heart to and love for other people and different generations, different ages. And we've been told to be wary of how technology can shape our lives, and it affects relationships and generations. And then we've been told to be self-aware of anxieties and fearfulness and overcoming those things and being bold. And now we're going to hear from this great Dr. Faith on reaching across different ages in this topic. So thank you, Faith.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Faith Bartlett, and as you know, obviously I know all of you guys, Don't fall asleep on me. I know it's the third one, and you guys are probably like, gotta get home. We can do this together. Okay, tonight I will be covering the topic of intergenerational integration. It is not good for man to be alone. I will make for him a suitable helper, said the Lord God to all of creation. Although this verse is commonly cited for marriage, it is not good for man to be alone, applies to all ages and phases of human life, and implies that we are relational beings. God foresaw a problem that may be a temptation for man and woman. Humans are social creatures. It's against God's design for them to be isolated from one another. Segregation of generations has increased during the worldwide pandemic coronavirus. The way the government has responded to this pandemic has exacerbated the generational divide. America has grown increasingly divided socially as it has lost touch physically across its generations. This has led to a society plagued by anxiety's fruits, such as isolation, depression, confusion, and even suicide. America must renew respect, honor, and value for the elderly in order to bridge the generational divide and for its youth to develop in a healthy way. Now we will be moving on. Oops, I forgot to edit my slide. Great, scratch this. So now we will be moving on to the history portion of my paper. The history of age segregation naturally evolved in the beginning of time by different levels of maturity, varying interests, and occupations. Until the 19th century, groups mingled profusely in America. Intergenerational families comprised most households. For example, people of different ages worked together, and families were larger. This closely knit way of living created a rich culture and brought all people together, including children and the elderly. During the Industrial Revolution, America began to be blinded by the advantages of intergenerational interdependence. The Industrial Revolution was a major turning point, encouraging lifestyles that eroded culture and communities. For instance, fathers had to leave their families to work in the factories, and many people were forced to work in deadly environments just to survive in the growing economy. Part of the new child labor laws kept children out of life-threatening factories, while the elderly were considered unsuited for current jobs that were physically demanding. With the high demand for sturdy, tough workers and tiresome labor hours, the Industrial Revolution created very little time for adults to interact with the youth of their time. Communities began to segregate people by their ages, which began to affect other areas of people's lives as well. For example, segregation could be seen in the increased importance on age. The increased importance placed on birthdays. In modern society, birthdays became a celebration, categorizing people in age groups. Additionally, people began to be segregated in schools, such as preschool, kindergarten, middle school, and so on and so forth. Likewise, the medical field began to divide based upon age. Our modern time segregates people into generations and microgenerations. Researchers have spent countless hours and money understanding how Gen Z differs from Gen Xers. By grouping people into children, teens, young adults, and now senior citizens, our society approaches age as a mechanism that divides us. The intergenerational segregation movement segued into the older generation being moved into nursing homes or quote-unquote old folks homes, and other places that separated them from youth and even society as a whole. They ended their lives labeled as senior citizens in nursing homes with other senior citizens. Nursing homes were and continue to be a major contributing factor to generational segregation. A nursing home is a private institution providing residential accommodations with health care, especially for elderly people. In order to dissect the problem of age segregation, we must recollect the birth concept of nursing homes. Almshouses, the original nursing homes, began in America around the 17th century, when the English settlers sailed this concept across the sea. They were not exclusively for elderly, but also targeted the mentally unstable and orphans. The home served simply as a roof over their heads and a daily home-cooked meals. Almshouses received much public disapproval and criticism from their dingy living quarters. This movement merged into convalescent homes, which is a similar idea that provided American citizens with basic health care and meals delivered in a private space. Convalescent homes became an achievement by World War II, which eventually became nursing homes. Though healthcare drastically improved in the 1900s, nursing homes had the negative effect of segregating generations into separate homes, contributing to a problem our world has today. One benefit of nursing homes is that they provide the elderly with quick medical care and 24-hour services to meet their needs. Another benefit is that nursing homes may cater to families who are unable to care for or provide a structured lifestyle for their grandparent. But the clear and heavy cost is that the elderly rarely see their families and are kept from socializing with people from other generations. The three plagues of nursing homes, as Atul Gawande quoted in his book Being Mortal, is that the three plagues of nursing home existence created boredom, loneliness, and helplessness. From these plagues also stem depression, Alzheimer's, sadness, and an increase in overall mortality. Nursing homes have a reputation for poor service to the elderly, but they are some of people's only options for their aging relatives. For example, single mothers, single sibling families that cannot support an aging loved one, and many more. America must find a way to provide a richer service and loving environment for our elders. If this happens, those in need of nursing homes for their grandparents will not have on their conscience the fact that their family members are in an insensitive environment. Americans who must resort to sending their parents or grandparents to nursing homes must acknowledge it as their duty to visit their relatives frequently. National Investigation Agency supported researchers have found that about 28% of older adults in the United States, or 13.8 million people, live alone. The substantial number of isolation and segregation of people in America is disheartening. Research has shown that social isolation and loneliness led to higher risk for a variety of physical and mental conditions, such as high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and even death. COVID-19 has elevated these numbers and has increased the physical and mental conditions. The graph above shows the rise of depression in each generation. On average, across all generations, depression and anxiety increased 27% due to COVID. Segregating and isolating individuals is a ruinous, harmful practice. In the height of the pandemic, many prioritize safety more than risk. The risk of getting the elderly sick could be good, but the overreaction and fear was detrimental to them. Many brought it on themselves. And I do take into consideration the people with compromised health, and I do want to be sensitive to them because there were some people that did actually have to stay at home, and it was just a really unfortunate time for them. America has been led into a detrimental state, being isolated and segregated from family and friends. Barred from the sight of a friendly face, mask mandates, normal human touch, or outright physical isolation, Americans suffered higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. People who engage in meaningful, productive activities with others tend to live longer, boost their mood, and have a higher sense of purpose. These activities seem to help maintain their well-being and improve their cognitive function, studies show. This may have stemmed from loss of relatives due to COVID, the inability to see friends and other family, and the increased hours on electronic devices. The number of elderly deaths drastically went up during the stay-at-home orders. Families and friends were restrained from seeing their loved ones in the hospital before they passed. Kids and adolescents lacked developmental years, foundational for learning how to socialize with people other than their family. All this has led to children developing higher levels of cortisol and worse cognitive development. Researchers saw a high rise in anxiety and depression, particularly in this younger generation. The pandemic contributed to the problem for intergenerational integration, not only in America, but worldwide. Oh, sorry, guys. Researchers reported 8.8 hours of screen time among younger adults and 5.2 hours among elderly, 65 years and older, presenting concerns among these populations too. Another survey recorded about 50 to 70% increase in internet use during the COVID-19 pandemic. And of that 50% of the time was spent engaging on social media in 2020. Furthermore, studies show lower levels of physical activity and less outdoor time amongst the youth due to the explosion of digital use in America. People were hungry for social interaction during the pandemic. For the single people living alone, the only option for them was to roam the internet. Numerous people relied on social media for entertainment and to maintain their relationships with others. The statistics on the graph above show that more than 50% of elderly from 50 to 80 years old in the US felt lonely or isolated. Before and during COVID-19 pandemic as of June 2020. So, yeah, you can see the dates right there to understand it better. The lack of companionship due to being confined to their homes contributed to the spread of loneliness and depression among the youth and seniors alike. In order to consider concerns in the current generational divide, I interviewed 4 seniors whom I selected to share their perspective on age segregation. Because of the time, I only wrote in depth about 2 of my interviews. Bill Garraway, an elder who has lived a full life in which he has experienced the benefits of intergenerational integration, answered these questions. The first question, have you seen a difference in the amount of time that young people spend with their grandparents over time? If so, what do you think has caused this? Bill replied with most definitely. Young people have just too much to do. We didn't have iPhones, television, or any other electronic device to play with growing up. This affirms the theory that the absence of screen time and electronic distractions created more time and opportunities for intergenerational integration. Bill grew up with both of his grandparents living in his house and another grandma living nearby. He said, I spent a lot of time with them because they were in my house or lived near me. We had few things to distract us. America's Generation Z would be significantly more integrated if grandparents lived with or nearby their grandparents and were not placed in nursing homes. Second question I asked him was, how are you able to stay integrated in this day and age? Well, he responded by saying, I enjoy being exposed to other generations. I get to hang out with all my grandkids, and then I get to hang out with all their friends. Bill has been given the privilege of living with his family. He goes to his grandkids' sporting events, music recitals, and activities, which creates a positive and integrated lifestyle. Being a part of a Protestant church, he said, creates a fruitful community. Most of my friends are one, if not two, generations younger than I am. Within his church, people of every age attend, from newborns to 90-year-olds. Something unique about Christian religion is its emphasis on having a community of like-minded people. Jesus appealed to us and commanded that there be no division among you, but you be perfectly united in mind and thought. With this Christian mindset and lifestyle, Bill has been able to reap the benefits of a non-segregated lifestyle, where he is immersed in a church community and living with his relatives. The next person I interviewed was the pastor of Trinity Covenant Church, Troy Martin. Pastor Martin has devoted his life to serving God by sharing the gospel to the people of Santa Cruz, California, and raising his 4 children with his wife. The first question I asked him was, do you think that the young people today are as connected to the older generation as they were when you were growing up? He mentioned that he grew up with a strong bond with his grandparents because his family and grandparents were intentional about spending time together. He said, I noticed when I come onto school campuses that most kids kind of just ignore me. He brought to attention that adults can fall into the same temptation of getting sucked into their own world. In order for all the generations to be prosperous and integrated, the people of America must have respect for all ages. This can be done by simply saying hello or asking how somebody's day is going. He said one part of a parent's job should be making their kids aware of the neighbors they have around them. Pastor Martin and his wife Brittany frequently have people over to their house. He said, there are some people that will just talk over my kids when they are sharing at the table because they are not adults and they get pushed aside. He brought up an important point because not only do children need to respect their elders, but adults need to acknowledge the youth in order for the youth to give them respect. The second question I asked him was, what do you think has led to people becoming segregated from generations? Pastor Martin answered, wealth. We have so much more wealth now that we can actually pay for someone else to take care of our parents and at the same time take care of our kids. Wealth has given Americans the ability to hire nannies and to watch children and place elderly into nursing homes. People wonder why we are unable to integrate, and this is a key reason. Another factor that has likely contributed to the disconnect between generations is the decline of Christianity in America over time. Christians are called to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility, value others above yourselves. Christian values such as honor your father and mother and love your neighbor as yourself vanish from American society as people surrender to their selfish ambitions. Without these pillars to build society, America loses its wisdom and honor for the past. The third and final question that I asked him was, if we were more integrated, what differences would you see in America? In summary, he said that we would see a generation passing on wisdom and values from the past. He said, I think we would be wiser and gentler. The Bible says, ask for the old paths where the good way is and walk in it. If a generation does not pass on important values of respecting their elders and loving their neighbors, then the quote-unquote old paths will be lost. Pastor Martin mentioned that practicing habits and traditions is one way that we can pass on the old way to the millennials. For example, communion, celebrating Christmas, and much more. He said, we would be wiser because we would learn what God has done in the past, and we would be gentler because you have to practice listening, which is one of the most needed skills as Christians. I interviewed 4 people, and one common thread was that the younger generation has lost the skill of listening. Scripture frequently commands us to listen. David spoke, A wise man will hear and increase his learning. America's youth would gain a substantial amount of wisdom and respect if they lent a genuine ear to their adults and elders. God listens to all our prayers and supplications. By being a good listener, America will be one step closer to being more Christ-like. Jesus commands his children to love their neighbor as themselves. By listening to people, Americans can show love to their neighbor. God commands us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. An African proverb wisely teaches that when the elderly die, a library is lost, and volumes of wisdom and knowledge are gone. This is something that parents and teachers of America must engrave in the children's minds from a young age. Elderly have a wealth of information to share if America's millennials come with an eager ear to listen. To finish off the discussions, I asked each individual if they believe it would be mutually beneficial to have a community center or a retirement home near a college where the elders are allowed to audit classes, attend events, and students can come to the community center for tutoring and a chance to build relationships with the elderly people. This was followed by the success story of Laysdale Village in Newton, Massachusetts. The story relates that the students' grades increasingly went up after the movement of elders on campus. Each person thought a community center near colleges would be a great idea, and Bill Garraway said that I know some friends in need of a community would be involved in this. This would benefit elders who have lost a social life and give them a purpose by sharing their knowledge with the youth of their day. This topic became real to me as I lost my guitar teacher, Buzz Roberts. He was not only a teacher, but he was a mentor and a dear friend to me. His passing came much sooner than expected. Oh, what I would do to spend another day with him and ask him all my unanswered questions. He educated me in history and was a primary example of an integrated lifestyle. Buzz made each person feel important and loved no matter what age they were. It reminded me how important people are and how much wisdom our elders can pass on to us. It's so easy to keep our circles narrow if we are not intentional. And Buzz exemplified the power of stories, listening, and most of all, encouragement. In our short friendship of 3 years, he was able to leave a great impact on me. I know it's cliche, but life is short, and we must savor each and every moment with our loved ones. From Genesis, God declared that it is not good for man to be left alone. Imagine a world where honor and value were shown to each generation, where Christ was the center of America's thinking, and where children showed a genuine interest in their elders' lives and stories. America would have a substantial decline in anxiety and depression if people were intergenerationally integrated. The world needs the connection of generations. Possible solutions to mitigate the age segregation issue are the improvement of nursing homes, a practice honor and respect across generations, and community centers where generations can integrate and flourish. Hopefully this research will encourage you guys to bridge the generational divide between America's millennials and their elders. Thank you for listening. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. Okay.
So Troy's old, that's my name.
You know what?
I already texted him.
He is elder than me. I did not mean that he was elder. He's got like a couple more years. He's got like 20 more years. He's good. 20 or 40.
You think your dad was older than you?
Yeah, my dad. Yeah. Oh, make sure to respect him too. No, yeah. He's elder than me.
Where's their social security check?
I know I didn't get your consent for using that photo, but that's okay.
So a serious question. I mean, another thing I think that contributes to this besides wealth is like the way the economy has changed. People move so much. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you comment on like this is just the fact that modern economy requires almost people like to follow to move to different cities and states. You know?
Oh, yeah. Like with inflation, I mean, we've seen so many families have to move from our church community and friends just because it's such a go lifestyle in California and New York, like some of the more built up places. And yeah, so they don't really have time for grandparents. But this is what I'm trying to encourage is to make time for your grandparents, slow down, and be present with your family, loved ones, and everyone around you. But I understand that it's hard with inflation. It's expensive. Both parents have to work a lot of times. It's such a hard one. Have to make some sacrifices. And if you have to move, if that's where God's calling you somewhere else, then I think that's what it has to be. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Mrs. Martin.
People ask you about being a senior, but I was curious how you might say this if you were talking to like a group of seniors. Like, I think there's some older people that with COVID actually kind of liked not having to have their annoying grandkids around. But they actually like being in a nursing home environment where they're only surrounded by quiet other people and not the hassle of kids and birthdays and parties and all that. So a lot of your advice was like how young people can engage their elders. What would you say, kind of like Troy mentioned, sometimes adults exclude kids.
Right.
Unknowingly, what kind of advice would you give if you were talking to older people?
Oh yeah, I have a lot to say on this. It totally goes both ways. As people get older, a lot of times they can become a little self-absorbed or unaware as they get older. Like they love talking about themselves a lot of times and have a lot of stories to give. But also, yeah, they like to just hang out with people their age. And I would encourage them to just be intentional about it's not about you. And you have so much wisdom that you can share with these other generations. And I would just encourage them to, put themselves out there. And if it doesn't come naturally, just be intentional and try not to be as sensitive. Like all their tics and all those things just can be heightened as they get older, and it does have to it takes a lot of intentionality and being disciplined about spreading their wisdom with their elders and with the youth, and getting themselves out there if they're just more comfortable being at home. I don't know if that answered it, but that was my thoughts on that. Yes.
Why do you think there's an awkwardness for young kids, maybe like middle schoolers, to acknowledge and engage with adults?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even like Grace was saying with social media, like social media pretty much shows what's the now and what's going on now. It doesn't say it doesn't show a bunch of history or interest in things like that. And so sometimes kids don't even know what to talk about. They're just so used to being around kids their own age, and they're just they're not even aware of past events, or they're not even wanting to listen to a story. But also, I guess I would encourage a kid just to come with a listening ear. It can be a little weird when a story's going on for a little, maybe longer than it should or something, but just come with an eager ear to listen. You can, pick and choose what you're gonna hear from them. And it can be awkward, and they just have to, branch out and try something new. But I'd have to think about that more. But yes.
Okay, this is for you, and then also to acknowledge Ben on putting these presentations in the order that you did. But there's definitely this thread this evening.
Oh,
Where you have the, kind of the social media disconnecting people. You have the fear, when you're talking about intergenerational interaction, where people from different generations, maybe, young people looking to old people, it takes some courage to, to talk to someone that isn't your age, or you don't necessarily know what to talk to them about, and vice versa. So I really like how this, kind of brought that together.
Yeah, no, it all tied together very well. I saw you had a question, or yes. Oh, do you have a question?
Do you have a question? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Kind of your, you kind of brought it together, but just kind of your thoughts on that correlation between, the different presentations and yours, kind of looking at the social media and about that fear-based kind of reaching across generations and how to overcome that.
How to overcome that? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really helpful when you're around grandparents from a young age to just be comfortable around them. Like, it just naturally happens when you're around people of that age from a young age. And have courage. Well, sometimes it can be scary when people have like gray hair and like hairs growing out their face and stuff. I think sometimes just don't judge a book by its cover, because sometimes that can be scary to kids, just like by appearance. But there's so much inside of them that's so insightful and like fun stories. Like, even if you can encourage your kids, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, they can be the most fun, interesting people. And just have courage in that way.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good job. Enthusiasm is money. Always. So my question for you, you're heading off to college, and you'll be very busy. You'll need time to think about it. Lots to do. But it's something that for Americans, it's so common to go into this 4-year season or 10-year season, 12-year season, who knows where it goes, of this very focused experience where you're kind of isolated with your peers. And then, some older people, but it's a very limited interaction of this, particular kind of teacher or whatever. Is there any ways that you can think of maybe you could apply into your sophomore year down the line, or things that you thought about having meditated on this for 2 years as you go off to college, that you could apply into the next season of your life?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So when you're living in the dorms, it's hard to be hospitable to people in some ways. But I was thinking it would be so fun if I have a house one day with some girls to just host some people from the church I'm going to. And if the community's not coming to you, you have to seek out the community. So something like hospitality is a great way of doing that. A Bible study, or going to church is a huge one. I mean, I'm going to be going to church throughout my whole college career, and I'll be attending Bible studies, and that's just a way that you can automatically become more integrated. So, yeah.
Great answer.
Thanks. Yes.
This goes along a little bit with the wealth of modern Americans, but how does the idea of, or the reality of modern American retirement played into just the segregation between the generations? The modern idea of retirement, that you hustle all these years to build your wealth so you can retire in your 60s and basically check out and live your dreams. That kind of idea, and live independent.
Well, society tells us today, treat yourself, self-love. But I think really when people retire, that's a great opportunity for them to spend that extra time that they have pouring out on the younger generation, or not the extra money, but just being intentional about using that extra time for good. But obviously society's telling us to treat yourself, don't waste your time. But yeah. Mr. Alexander, you look like you're thinking. Do you have a question for me?
It sounds like did you read Being Mortal?
I read parts of it.
Yeah.
I didn't read all of it.
Yeah.
But it was a great book.
It is a very important book. Being Mortal. What do you think is the ideal setting for a person to end their days?
I love that book for that reason, actually. The author talks a lot about about aging with autonomy, so like being able to self-govern yourself, and dying with dignity. And a lot of times I feel like the medical world their goal is to just keep a person alive for as long as they can. Like even with COVID, to not let their loved ones see them because they want to keep them alive. But honestly, I think it's better to, aging with autonomy. So nursing homes can sometimes be really restrictive in that way, but they can also, give you a way to be able to hang out with friends, walk around, have your own room. And also dying with dignity. So you would probably rather live with be around your loved ones. You don't want to die in a hospital with a tube up your nose or something. So that was a little graphic, but it's true. Like, it's better to maybe die a little bit sooner, but be able to have that self-government and be around your loved ones and have that special time. So that was this line of aging with autonomy and dying with dignity. Yeah, I really like that.
Well done. Anything else? Well done, Faith.
Thank you.
One of the things that there's so many wonderful things there. One of the things I think is especially important in your whole talk, as a obligatory point, is the importance of truly, genuinely listening to other people, be they younger or be they older. I think it's fallen on hard times. Genuine, sustained, attentive, self-disciplined love through listening, I think, is in a rough spot in our culture. So I think that was golden. And I think it's really key to building respect between generations. So beautiful point. We need each other, right? We need each other. I mean, this is a communal event that has power and meaning to it, and you've blessed it by your presence. And I think on this trip, on this last leg I flew in, we've been traveling a little bit. My daughter graduated from college this week, and I was on a flight home. And in a lot of occasions in society, when you're smashed up against people, it can be a little bit rude to talk too much, especially in those occasions. And they make airplane seats so incredibly narrow these days. You're just like right there, like in the middle seat, and there's this mom, and she's got her 3-month-old baby, and just trying to give her some space by just letting her do her thing and take care of the kiddo. But it was just this beautiful moment that I was thinking about, where this little girl, she was holding her, and I was in the middle seat, so I'm here, and the little kiddo was looking my direction. I was like, I just can't help myself. And so I looked over, and I had two things: eye contact. I mean, she's 3 months old, right? Eye contact and a big old smile, and she just woo! I mean, I'm a total stranger, complete stranger, and no words, but just big smile and eye contact, and that little thing. I mean, she just lit up, and she just smiled, and then how little kiddos can do. It's just too much, It's it's awesome, but it's too much. And she just shook her head, and burrowed her face in her mom's chest, It's just a beautiful moment. But I think we're made in the image of God, and that's eye contact and smiling, they have powerful effect. And I just think about that tonight as we wrap up. Just we need each other, and technology can be a wonderful thing, but let's not live our community and our lives that God wants us to through technology. And let's live it with real people, like we're doing tonight. So.
And tomorrow night.
And tomorrow night, yes, thank you very much. We have 2 more tomorrow night. It starts at 6:30, same routine. And I'm just overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by the beauty of God's work in what I've seen tonight. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the school. We thank you for Faith Bartlett and Cooper Brownlee, and we thank you for Grace Paul. So blessed this year to have spent all this time with them. Thank you for their families. Lord, we're excited about what you will do with these young people and fill their lungs with great faith and fill their sails and make them bold and transform the world one life at a time. Through them, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Good night. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks all.
All right, let's go.
Woo!